Hello, 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 and welcome to the Help Create live stream, the weekly live stream hosted by me, Chase Oliver. I was the 2024 Libertarian candidate for president. Now I'm just a nice guy who live streams once a week. Oh, get that hair out of the way there. Anyway, so what's going on with you guys? Nothing much for me except for, hey, I'm turning 40. I got a birthday coming up this weekend. Excited to be entering my fourth decade of life. And so I figured let's make that the topic of today's live stream, talking about getting older, what I've learned throughout my life, what I expect to see in this next decade as I enter my 40s, what excites me, what makes me a little nervous. And yeah, so that is the topic tonight, turning 40. So yeah, I also have a birthday fundraiser going on because I will be heading on to the UK in November. We'll be talking a little bit more about that. But if you want to check out the fundraiser, it is in the description of today's live stream on YouTube and on Facebook, and I will drop it on X right now. Just give me one moment to throw that out there. Oh, I can't comment on X, so check out my Facebook, check out the YouTube for the links to that fundraiser for the UK. And I'll tell you all about that in just a little bit. But yeah, turning 40 years old. I'm very, very excited. Let's see. Hey, happy birthday, says Mr. Logan. Happy birthday to you. Connor throws up the old party horn. Thank you, Connor. Happy birthday, says Larry Silver, aka or for mayor of Greenfield, Indiana. Hey, how you doing, Larry? Happy birthday. Thank you. Thank you, says Building Fins Up. Thank you. Happy birthday, says Bowalta Tanga. That is a long, long name, but rock and roll. Thank you so much for saying happy birthday. So turning 40 years old, it's kind of a dual thing. Like I'm both excited, but also, I'll be honest, a little bit nervous about entering in my 40s because my 30s have been an awesome decade in my life. It feels cliche to say it feels like yesterday that I was just turning 30, but it doesn't feel like it's been 10 years. Time is certainly moving a lot more quickly as I'm getting older here. But, where was I at in my life at 30? At 30, I was a waiter. I was, still living actually with my same friend who I live with now. We were just in a different house. I didn't have one of my cats. My roommate didn't have his cat. My dog was a pup. She wasn't a puppy, but she was still a real young dog. Now she's a senior dog. And, at the place I was in my life, I was involved in politics, but I was kind of doing that as like an on the side thing. I was never a candidate for office or any of that stuff. Like this is before I ever thought about seriously running as a candidate. That was kind of dream stuff at that point in time. And so, for me, it was something that seemed like a really far off thing. And in that decade, not only have I gotten to be a candidate for office multiple times, and you know what? After this, I'm just going to start streaming all these comments, and then I'm just going to put this. Hubby says his motto for his 40s is not to listen to stupid people. Good one, and not to trust politicians. Even better. So I'm also about to just start streaming the comments here. You'll start seeing them pop up here on the bottom of the page. So I can keep on talking without having to throw those up there. So you should see comments starting to populate here in the bottom of the page, on the bottom of the screen there. But yeah, so turning 40, I never thought, when I was 30, I never thought I was going to be a candidate. I never thought I was going to do anything serious within, like as being a candidate in the Libertarian Party. I thought I was just going to be a normal, regular guy who shows up at the meetings, who votes Libertarian, that kind of stuff. So it's amazing what this decade has brought for me. Like literally when I say I've been blessed, I don't mean that facetiously. I don't mean that as a joke. I have been blessed this last decade of my life to do some of the things that I've always wanted to do. When I was in high school, I used to joke that I was going to run for president one day. And I had friends who thought, yeah, you will, because you're very into this politics stuff. And it was something that for me kind of happened really on accident. The first run that I did in 2020 for Congress was happening because it was a special election and we didn't have a lot of time to recruit people. And I just happened to live in the city and was willing to run for Congress in the city of Atlanta in the 5th district. And after John Lewis passed away, and that 6 week or 9 week campaign, whatever it was very short. Really catapulted my name ID both within the Libertarian Party, but also within the community in Georgia, because I got to participate in so many debates and online forums. Because at that point, uh, we all know what was going on in summer of 2020. And so there wasn't a lot of in-person campaigning, but there was a lot of online forums. And, I happened to get invited to a lot of those. And so I became a known commodity in the city. And then, shortly thereafter, we needed a candidate to run for U.S. Senate. And, um, I decided to do that, thinking, hey, you know what? I'll run for this. We'll see how it goes. Like, I think I can have an impact in this race. And when I got invited to the debates, it was off to the races. And it really had a real impact when I caused that runoff. And literally the next day, I got calls wanting to run for president. I didn't think I was going to run for president before I turned 40. I thought that was an after 40 goal. I had that solidly, like running for office, getting more directly involved in politics as a candidate. That was an after 40 goal for me. Why? Because that's when most people, excuse me, that's when most people decide to run for office, is after they're 40. Now, that leads me to now is like, what do I do next? Like, what's the next thing for me? Like, what's my next hill to climb? What's the next thing that I want to do? And I don't rule out running for president again one day or running for office again one day. Certainly, that's a thing that could totally happen, especially as this beard gets more gray and I get more of that wisdom and life experience that some voters discounted for me because I was only 39 years old. Never mind the fact that our vice president is also 39 years old and doesn't have a lot of gray in his beard. And so I think there's plenty of time for me to do that again. And that is definitely a possibility in my post 40 life. The other thing I'm really happy to talk about is that I'm really in love. And that's something I wasn't really able to really work on during my time as a candidate. During my time running for office, I really was super focused on running for office. And I just didn't have time for my personal life and for my love life. Excuse me one moment. Stop eating the cat food, dog. Sorry, I had to stop my dog from eating the cat's food because she's like that. Anyway, here, say hello to Delilah. Oh, the camera's not moving. Oh, it's because it's got me on the old camera. Stupid. I thought I had the new camera plugged in. Anyway, that's why I probably don't look as good a quality as I normally do. I just realized that. But yeah, so that was going to be a post 40 goal. And now that I've accomplished it, it might be a post 40 goal again. Thank you for reposting the stream. By the way, if anybody wants to share this stream, that'd be great. But I have lots of other goals now that I'm kind of an elder statesman in the Libertarian Party. I'm going to keep working within my state on my state's party's XCOM to try to improve things. I'm going to someone asked me to run for the LNC in 2026. I don't know if that's in the cards for right now. But maybe one day I will serve on the national board. That would be great to do. I would love to do that one day. I don't know if 2026 is the year, but I do know that I am in love right now. That's what I was getting back to. I'm in love, which is something I wasn't able to really accomplish or pursue as a candidate. Because when you're running for president, man, you're working 16, 17-hour days of travel, interviews, campaigning. I mean, it's a slog. And you have a whole staff around you who's helping you, who's there for you, but it's still exhausting. And you really don't have time to focus on your personal life, on your love life. And, if you're lucky, you already have someone who's blessed to be in your life, that you're blessed to have in your life, who is a partner for you. And most people who do run for office aren't bachelors. Most of them do have a partner there. And I did not have that support structure, which I guess is a little bit of a handicap for me. But I know my running mate, he has an amazing wife, an amazing family. And I know he leaned on them. I know Mike certainly leaned on them when he was running. And I have great friends and loved ones. And of course, I love my parents, but I didn't have that person who was like in my life, kind of full time as a partner. And I have that now, and I'm really excited. because we just passed our 6 months together for 6 months, which, is always the toughest time. It's when you're getting to know each other, when you're learning more about each other, when you start to notice things that might, show that that person's not perfect, which is actually perfect for me because, um, we're all imperfect, right? And I think that's good because it keeps me, this hair right here is bothering me, but it keeps me um, thinking about how much I love him and how blessed I am to be in love. And so if you're out there and you have a great partner who's supporting you, who's there for you, realize how special that is, and realize how much you need that when the times are tough. Because I really wish I'd gotten to know him before I'd run for office, so that way we were together when I was, because it would have made this whole crazy thing um, a lot easier, I think. And if I ever do it again, I'm going to be happy that I have somebody in my life, at least, in my mind for the foreseeable future, right, that will hopefully be that support structure for me if I ever do this again. And that might be the X factor. That might be what's changes the thing most of all, because my policies won't really change. I'll still be a libertarian. I'll still be a believer in limited government, but maybe in a few years with a little more life experience and having that and that partner in life kind of a thing, that might change my outlook a little bit, and I might be a different candidate. So who knows? But I'm happy to report that I'm in love. And that's another thing that I'm really excited to be pursuing as I enter this fourth decade of my life. Because, I've had boyfriends and partners throughout my 20s and my 30s. This one feels a little different. And so I have really enjoyed getting to know him. And I'm really getting excited for Dragon Con coming up in a few weeks, which is one of my favorite conventions to do all the time, no matter what decade of life I'm in. And they are a master cosplayer. They make amazing looks. And then also we're just gonna have a great time together out there. So I'm looking forward to it, and I'm looking forward to growing into the next 6 months and the next year and the year after that. That's my plan. So if he's watching, which I know he's not, he's out at the movies right now. That's why I can be all mushy right now, because I know he's not watching live. Maybe he watches this later. I doubt it. But if he is, baby, I love you. And thank you for being in my life, because our first date was as I was running for office, and it wasn't a good date. I was very stressed and very, like, my mind was elsewhere, and it was just a very awkward date. And we both walked away from it like, guess that didn't work out. And then, like a year and a half later, we decided to do it again, and or a year later, or whatever it was, and here we are now, over 6 months. So, yeah, just wanted to let you guys know that that's another thing I'm looking forward to in my 40s, is growing into my relationship, and seeing how that goes. Another thing I'm looking forward to in my 40s is growing this live stream and the things that I do here. And we do have Patreons who support this show and my projects, which I promise you, I've been a little behind on expanding some things. We are going to have more content coming than just this live stream. And so if you are supporting the show via Patreon, rest assured, by the way, I don't need you to have to double dip. If you're already a patron to this show, don't feel like you have to give me a birthday donation to that fundraiser, which I'll talk about in a second. Don't feel the need to double dip. You're already supporting. I don't, unless you want to, but I'm not trying to guilt trip nobody. You're already giving. So, but you're helping to support this channel, this live stream, and growing this project that I really want to talk about, people having an impact in their community outside of government, doing direct and voluntary action. So if you know a project that's worth supporting, please DM me or throw it into the comments on one of my videos. If you know a nonprofit or a charity project that really deserves to be highlighted, because that's one of the groups I definitely want to share, as well as artists who are creating art that is reflective of the moment that we're in right now. So if you know those folks, make sure to share it out there and spread the word, so I can help spread the word via this live stream. And then we have other creative projects that are in the works that should be coming out. I already have one podcast that I have like a dozen episodes in the can. I just need to work with my partner on that podcast on getting them released, getting them edited and looking good and going out there. So I just wanted to talk about that as well. So yeah. That being said, post turning 40, happy to be turning 40, and I'll be talking a little bit more about that in a minute. But I do also want to talk about what I'm going to be doing in the future and immediately, which is I'm heading to Cambridge in November. I'm heading to the UK to debate at Cambridge. And that is because, I was invited by their debate society at Cambridge, which is one of the oldest in existence that's still going today. I was invited to debate on a topic that I'm really, really excited about. Let me just pull up the conversation here. So, the topic that I will be arguing on is this House believes the founding fathers would be disappointed in today's America. And I look forward to arguing in the affirmative on that. I do believe the founding fathers would be disappointed in today's America. I look forward to debating this at Cambridge in front of some of the brightest students in the world who are ready to grill me, ask me questions. And I'm sure a lot of them are not libertarians and are looking forward to trying to debate and having a good conversation about politics. And I look forward to joining that and spreading the message of liberty in a positive, empathic way to show that that there is a way forward for the Libertarian Party, for the libertarian message in the United States, and that what's going on currently in our government should be ringing alarm bells that we need more individual liberty. We need more limited government. We need more escape from the oppression, from the abuse, from the violence of government, both in our business and our personal lives, in our tax, in the taxes that we have, in the way we treat our immigrants, in the way we spread war around the world. I am ready to go argue that the founding fathers, the people who founded our nation, who founded us on the separation of church and state, who founded us on separating ourselves from an oppressive, top-down, tyrannical, centralized, authoritarian government, would be absolutely ashamed of the government we have today. And I'm looking forward to arguing that with someone who will be arguing in the negative and having to defend today's government, namely a very prominent member of the Republican Party who is very active in the Bush administration. Don't want to spill all those beans yet. I don't know if it's my job to announce who I'll be debating possibly in Cambridge, but that's a sneak peek, as it is definitely somebody who was a chief part of the Bush administration, and as somebody who's been an anti-war advocate for over 20 years, for almost 25 years now, the gift that I would have being able to go to Cambridge and debate on that motion and to talk about the direct line between the abuses of the Bush administration all the way through Trump. Oh, I can't wait to show that to both the students who will be in attendance as well as the global audience who watches those debates around the world. So I will be ecstatic to go, but I need your help because running for president had me use up all my life savings. I did not have a full-time job for over 2 years. I now am full-time employed. Good on me. I have a great job, work with great people, but I'm trying to rebuild those savings at the same time as I'm trying to afford a passport, flight out to Cambridge. I got to get a tux because they do really like you to be really well dressed there, those kinds of things. So there are definite expenses that I'm going to have in my life, as well as taking time away from my job that won't be paid because I haven't accrued that time off yet. So I need your help. So if you're watching this video on YouTube or on Facebook, in the description of this video is a link to a GoFundMe that can help me get out to Cambridge in November. If you're watching on X, DM me. I'll send you the link. I don't just want to, putting website links really F's up the algorithm of X. So I'm trying not to do that. But I will share that out eventually on X as well in a separate post from this live stream. But yeah, please, 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 if you can, donate to that. It's also on my personal Facebook page. If you know me, if you're friends with me on Facebook, you can also see it on my personal page. I have a short goal and a long goal. The short goal being $1,000 that would afford my flight, my passport, and kind of the minimal expenses I would need. I have the longer goal of $2,000, which would basically help me overcome the income loss from having to take that time off of work, in addition to the cost of flying out there and spreading the message of liberty in the UK. So if you want to support, if you have the means to support, by no means give money if you're not able to. But please, so please, 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 if you can, look in the description on this YouTube video or on this Facebook live stream and see the fundraiser. I will also put it in the comments on the Facebook after this is over with, as well as maybe throw it in a comment on the YouTube. But for right now, if you could just check it out in the description of the video, go there, donate. That would be awesome. We're already over a quarter of the way to that short goal. And so I'm hoping in the next few weeks that will allow me to get to that long goal and give me some security as I'm heading out to the UK. Again, this is kind of a, if you want to call it a birthday gift, please do. But I am running this fundraiser to help me get out to the UK so I can argue on behalf of the American people, on behalf of individual liberty, and against the oppressive tyranny and abuse that we see from our government, certainly my entire adult life and before then. And so I want to make the point that our founding fathers would be appalled, disgusted, disappointed, horrified by the America of today and how our government treats its citizens. And so if you want to help me make that argument to the UK, to the very nation that our nation was birthed separating itself from, but also to some of the brightest students around the world, the Cambridge debates are very watched. They're very well watched by a lot of folks all over the world. And maybe this is the first time a good old boy from Georgia who ain't got a college degree happens to get to go argue and debate in front of some of those well-educated students in the world. So I'm looking forward to doing that, and watch as my Southern accent comes out when I'm in the UK, because Lord knows, anytime I leave the South, it gets thicker and thicker because I long for home. So that's heading to Cambridge in November. So I'm going to keep this. I'm not going to have too long of a stream tonight because it is celebrating my birthday. I'm just trying to keep it loosey-goosey and having a little fun. I'm going to talk about one more informal kind of fun thing I did this week. And then I do have a bit of an in memoriam for a couple of folks at the end of this. So please stay tuned till the end of this stream. But what did I do this week? Well, I started celebrating my birthday. My lovely boyfriend decided to treat me on Friday. I got to go out to an amazing show at the Ameris Bank Amphitheater in Metro Atlanta. I think it's up in Alpharetta, if I'm not mistaken. But I went and saw Kesha and the Scissor Sisters. Oh, well, Kesha and Scissor Sisters. There is no the. It sounds very old when you say the Scissor Sisters. It's just Scissor Sisters. Anyway, so I went and saw Kesha and Scissor Sisters in concert. An amazing show. Oh my God. It's towards the end of their tour. So I think they had like one or two shows after this leg. But if you got a chance to see this tour, it was amazing. I mean, it was, I'm a fan of all kinds of genres of music. I'm an old school punk rocker. I like metal music. I like pop music. I like when people say, what kind of music do you like? I say, I like good. I like good country music. I like good rock music. I like good pop music. I like good dance music. I don't like bad. And that's just my way of saying that there's, a lot of different kinds of music that I enjoy. And pop music is no different. And I'm a huge fan of Scissor Sisters. I knew Kesha. I knew of Kesha. She's been around for a long while, since like the mid 2000s. She's been around since like the 2010s, that kind of time period. And so she has a long catalog of music. And of course, she's had more recent music that she's released since she headed out and separated from her former label and got to produce her own music again. And so what's great about this is both these acts were amazing. And Scissor Sisters, I had seen almost like 20 years ago, like 15 years ago was the last time I saw Scissor Sisters on stage. They had taken a long hiatus. And if you don't know who Scissor Sisters are, they're a band that's based out of New York City, but most of their fame came in the UK. In fact, they were the highest selling artist in the UK, I think, in 2004. And their musical genre is very eclectic pop, everything from kind of vaudevillian kind of sounding pop to like their later albums were very synth heavy, dance heavy, just good all around music. And they are a very well known queer artist. Like they have been, of course, queer themselves and supporting queer artistry for over 20 years. And it's amazing that they were as impactful as they were in the early 2000s, especially in Europe, being a very well-known and out gay artist in a way that a lot of folks weren't in the early 2000s. And in fact, I say a lot of the thing that Scissor Sisters did allowed future queer artists to really be themselves, be who they are, and not have to feel like ashamed of that. And for me as a queer person, I really love their contribution to music, and I'm just a fan of a lot of their music. They also have, in my opinion, the best cover of Pink Floyd's Comfortably Numb ever. I don't think I have any, it's like they take a very slow song that's about heroin use. If you've ever seen The Wall, Comfortably Numb, and they make it into like a poppy dance song that's got a great beat to it. So it is a great, thank you for reposting free. Thank you for reposting the stream. So Scissor Sisters, fantastic act. And then Kesha, I knew I was going to enjoy myself at the pop concert. But what I really didn't think about as a libertarian is how much of this tour that she's on directly relates to the word freedom. And that's because Kesha, if you're not familiar, she was a very popular pop artist in like the 2010s, as I said. And throughout that, she had claimed she had been sexually assaulted and abused by her producer, and had fought and had lawsuits to release herself from her record label and to allow herself to create her own music. And that only just recently got settled in the last couple, in the last little bit. And it's only then that she's been able to make new music. And so much of this tour is about her reclaiming her art and reclaiming her freedom to be who she is and own herself. And, thinking about that and thinking about this message here has really, um, her fight for freedom and her struggle for freedom really makes me think about how we can communicate the message of freedom to a lot of women out there who have suffered abuse at the hands of men, who have suffered sexual or physical abuse and feel trapped. And we need to let them know that we don't just care about your economic freedom. We care about your personal freedom. We care about your physical freedom and your freedom to live in peace and not have to fear abuse. And as much as we talk about things like taxes and like the wars overseas and these big ideas politically, we also need to remember to start communicating to communities in a way that resonates on the personal level. And I think we need to listen to more women who have suffered those abuses, especially those who have freed themselves from those abuses, so that we can learn from them. And so that we can take those messages forward to more and more people, more men and women who are suffering bondage, who are suffering from abuse, who are suffering in fear and want to be free. That's a message of freedom that, let me just tell you right now, I was in a crowd of thousands of women. The people who go see Kesha are majority women. And when the word freedom blares across the big screen and the crowd cheers in a roar, that really inspired me to think about how we can better communicate our libertarian values of respect, individual rights, personal security, the ability to defend yourself without fear, the ability to own yourself without fear or without repression from government or without repression from your partners using the power of government. And so just wanted to talk about that a little bit and remark about what a great experience it was. And so, maybe we need a little bit more of that in the Libertarian Party, that kind of thoughtfulness and that kind of discussion around freeing yourself from the chains of abuse and what we can do as libertarians to facilitate that. Things like mutual and direct aid and voluntarism and charity to help those who are in need. Being a personal person who's going to listen and trusted by women, that if they need to speak out, you can have their ear. There's a trend on TikTok right now because of the song Goodbye Earl from the Chicks. And, in that song, there's a woman named Wanda and her best friend is Marianne. And when she finds out that Wanda's been abused, Marianne goes out and they kill the abuser in the song. But in TikTok, there's a whole trend about who's your Marianne? Who is it that rescued you from that situation? And I'm hoping each of you out there who spreads the message of liberty and individual rights can be someone that, if there's a woman in your life suffering abuse, you can be her Marianne and get out there and help. And you don't have to be a big, strong guy. In fact, you don't have to be a guy at all. You can be young, you can be old, you can be anybody. That if you see something and if you hear about someone being abused, do what you can to help that person get out of there. And so just wanted to spread that message. Now I'm going to answer a few questions here before I get to the end. Let me just take this banner down here. So let me throw up some comments here that I see. How do I keep my beard so neat? Mine looks like birds live in it. First off, I regularly keep it trimmed. I do have a good beard trimmer. Shout out to Manscaped. They make great clipper products for everywhere on your body. But and that's not a plug. They're not sponsoring the show. They do have really good ceramic blades, so you don't get nicked or anything. So I always do keep it nice and trimmed. I also have a beard wash. I don't know the company that uses it, but it's a soap that I use. So when I use my face wash, I use it all around except for where the beard is, because face wash really dries the hair out and it makes it very coarse. And so I use a beard wash, which has some oil and some other things in it that not only keeps your skin nice and clean and from getting acne underneath the beard and stopping those ingrown hairs from kind of straying out of there, but it also keeps things nice and shiny and soft and well maintained. So that's my secret. And now that you know, you can tell everyone else. So I thought I put that up there, didn't I? Da-da-da-da-da-da. So yeah, that was that. So let me take that down. Honored to know you too, Free. Hi Chase, I voted for you last year. Anyways, I remember that you originally picked Kristen Alexander for VP, but you ended up choosing Mike instead. How difficult of a choose was it? Yeah, I think you say choice was it to replace her. So first off, shout out to Kristen. She's amazing. She does great work over the Libertarian Party of Indiana. She was the campaign manager for their gubernatorial candidate. She's been the vice chair over there. She does amazing work. And I would have loved to have her as a running mate. But when I announced her as my running mate, when I first approached her, I did tell her, it's not uncommon in the Libertarian Party that on the floor, a presidential candidate will drop out, endorse one of his opponents in exchange for wanting to be the running mate. And I said, that's a very real possibility that might happen. And so when I went into the press conference after Donald Trump came to the Libertarian Convention and spouted his bullshit for about 20 minutes, myself, Mike Tremont, my eventual running mate, and Michael Rechtenwald, another one of the candidates who was running for the presidential nomination, got the chance to respond to Trump in a press conference. Dr. Rechtenwald, kind of famously within the Libertarian Party, had a gummy and was a little out of it and decided to just leave a few minutes into that. So it left me and Mike Tremont up there on the stage together by ourselves. And to Mike's credit, I'll give him this. He came up to me and said, listen, we don't have to both answer the same question. Like, we are both libertarians. We both have generally the same agreement. We can just make it a distinction if we need to, but how about you answer question A, I'll answer question B, you get C, and I'll get D. And so what we did was we basically joined together and kind of worked as a team. It was kind of like volleyball. We were bump, set, spike, right off each other. We were working great. And when I came off that stage, people were going, Chase and Mike, or Mike and Chase, Mike and Chase. And I knew that might be a real possibility at that point, especially if Mike dropped out before the final round, that might end up being the ticket. And so Mike was, of the three candidates, me, myself, and Dr. Rechtenwald, Mike went out first. And right after that, both myself and Dr. Rechtenwald went to Mike and were like, do you want to be our VP? We'll happily bring you on the ticket if you want to endorse this campaign. And Mike thought about it for a while, and then went to the microphone and endorsed my campaign and accepted my offer to be his running mate. And that's really what secured the nomination, I think, in those later rounds was Mike stepping up. And so I'm so happy that Mike was my running mate, but that's no shade or towards Kristen. She's amazing. And had she gotten to be my running mate, we would have kicked ass all over the country. She would have worked really hard for the campaign. I know Mike worked hard too, but it would have been a different kind of energy, certainly, because we would have been the youngest ticket, I think, in history if you combine the ages of the VP and the presidential candidate. So it would have been really awesome. But alas, woulda, coulda, shoulda. Can't dwell in the past, only work towards the future. And who knows? Maybe one day she's my running mate in the future. Who knows, right? Am I worried about SCOTUS potentially overturning Obergefell v. Hodges? Why or why not? I'll tell you right now, I've seen the news story that's going around, and I want to say I think it's actually a little irresponsible for the news, for the mainstream media companies to be reporting it like they have. They're reporting it like the Supreme Court is going to hear the arguments to overturn Obergefell v. Hodges. They are not. What's happened is Kim Davis, who was the marriage clerk out in wherever, East Bumblefuck, who didn't want to marry the gays, refused to do it and lost her job over it and is suing because she's saying that she was damaged. And she lost her initial lawsuit, appealed to this appeals court, lost there too, and now she has filed a cert a cert petition to argue in front of the Supreme Court, as thousands of people do every year. Let me tell you this: thousands of people don't get their court case heard every year by the Supreme Court. It's very unlikely they will take this case up, seeing as both the lower courts and the appeals court have not ruled in favor of Kim Davis. I don't think they're going to take that forward. And so I believe it was actually very premature fear mongering on behalf of mainstream media to gin up like, oh my God, gay marriage is going to be taken away tomorrow. Look what's happening. And frankly, I think it's a distraction from the fact that we have the National Guard on the streets of DC when there's not a crime wave, that we're seeing Trump threatening to do this in other cities. I think it's a distraction for us to be talking about this when we have an abuse of immigrants going on all over the country, thanks to ICE. When we have the tariffs hitting our wallets, I think it's a distraction from the fact that we are supporting a genocide in Gaza, funded by our military and our dollars. I think it's a distraction from the fact that Ghislaine Maxwell has been sent to a minimum security prison and can technically now qualify for work release. Didn't release the Epstein files, but he's certainly releasing the Epstein perpetrators. So maybe that's why we need to pump the brakes a little bit on the fear of Obergefell v. Hodges and Kim Davis and all this stuff. As Connor says, the Supreme Court would not ban nationwide anyways. At most, they would defer to the state's powers. But I don't even think they're going to hear the argument. Like, I don't even think that's going to be a case. And if it is, that's when I'll start to worry. That's when I'll really start to be sounding the alarms. But until then, we have a lot of things that are actually happening right now that are affecting people's life and their liberty. And I say this as a gay man, that is on the back burner of my mind for me. Just my personal opinion. And I just want folks to know that. So don't fear right now for that. Fear the fact that your immigrant neighbors are being snatched off the streets. Fear for the fact that everything you buy is about to get more expensive, thanks to tariffs. Fear for the fact that we have a president who's threatening to send the National Guard to the streets, and all the cities he named just happen to have black mayors and they're blue cities. What the F is up with that? Maybe that's what we need to be focusing on. And the fact that we're not getting the Epstein list, and Ghislaine Maxwell has been sent to a minimum security prison while we're sending people who pick our fruit or do manual labor or construction jobs or work in hotels or just trying to raise their families and make $1 so they can survive. Those people are being sent to freaking alligator Alcatraz. And Ghislaine Maxwell is in minimum security prison. So focus on what's important. I just had to get that rant out there because I've seen a lot of people online talking about this whole thing with the Supreme Court, and it is absolutely a distraction at this point. If that changes, I'll be the first to be letting you know and sounding the alarms. Last question I'll take, and then I'll get to this last portion. What are my thoughts on the gerrymandering issue in Texas, California, and New York? Great question, Connor. Great question. I think it's bullshit on both sides for doing it. I think both sides, both political parties, regularly gerrymander. This is happening in the middle of the decade, which is unprecedented in Texas and California to respond. The real response should not be, hey, we're going to gerrymander better than you. The response should be supporting the Lars Mapstead Voter Bill of Rights. Lars Mapstead, who is a colleague of mine who also ran for the Libertarian Party nomination, fantastic guy, had a fantastic campaign team, such a great policy team that I literally lifted his policy wholesale, gave him credit for it, but ran on this. These are the things that we need to improve. And let me just pull that up really quickly. So I will give you the Voter Bill of Rights in a nutshell in just 1 second. Let me pull up my platform so I can speak it a little bit more eloquently and have it right for you. So the Voter Bill of Rights, there's 5 steps to it. So tell me if this sounds better than gerrymandering, and if this sounds what real advocates of democracy should be arguing in favor of. 1, all voters have the right to vote for the candidate of their choosing. No candidate shall be required to provide a fee of more than 1% of the salary of the office or submit more than 1,000 signatures to appear on a ballot. No state shall prohibit candidates from collecting signatures to appear on the ballot 365 days before the election of that office. and there shall be no special ballot access privileges provided by membership or an association of any party, organization, or association. That levels the playing field and makes it so that we have where if you want to have a libertarian or a green or any other party on the ballot, it requires 1% of the salary at the most and 1,000 signatures at the most. That's doable, way more doable than a lot of the ballot access hurdles that exist. If you had that, you'd have more choices in your ballot. Step 2, all voters have the right to a fair congressional district. No state shall limit the right of voters to establish independent citizen redistricting commissions free of elected officials and their agents. All redistricting guidelines, maps, plan, processes, formulas, and algorithms used to draw congressional districts shall be made available for public inspection and comment at least 60 days prior to adoption. Congress shall not limit the right of voters to create at-large, proportional, or combined nonpartisan congressional districts, so long as the number of representatives per state does not change. And no state shall prohibit or otherwise hinder a ballot initiative to recognize congressional districts or create an independent citizen redistricting commission. That's the one that's the most important to gerrymandering right there. That's what we should be arguing as libertarians. That's frankly what anybody who wants to be responding to what's going on in Texas should be doing instead of cheering on Gavin Newsom for going, I'm going to gerrymander better than you. Gerrymandering only entrenches the two-party system, brings it more in control of everything, and makes it harder for new parties to break through, new ideas to break through, and it makes it harder to break the partisan logjam that we see all over the country. So absolutely oppose it. 3, all voters have the right to transparent elections. No state shall limit the access of citizens to safely observe the voting process so long as they do not obstruct the election or voting process, regardless of the method or type of ballot. No state may restrict access to examination of voted ballots, ballot tapes, and executed ballot applications by the public 30 days after an election. And no state may discard any of the above for 24 months after an election. All states shall make the source code of any electronic voting machine used in an election available for public inspection. This would be great to quell the, oh, this person cheated, that person cheated, they're rigging the votes. This would allow for more public eyes to be on those votes and to create more security and more confidence in our elections. 4, all voters have the right to access the voting process. No state shall require payment for the appropriate identification to vote or the underlying documents required for such identification. And no state shall prohibit a non-incarcerated citizen from voting due to criminal history or record. No state shall restrict any registered voter from requesting an absentee ballot. This would remove the problem where felons are not allowed to vote after they've served their time. That's BS. They've returned to society. They should be able to return to voting, and we should not be restricting who can or cannot vote based on whether they can or cannot afford an ID. That's BS. And lastly, all voters have the right to secure elections. No state shall prohibit or hinder any citizen from accessing current voter registration lists. Any state that uses electronic voting machines shall use end-to-end encryption on all voting software and systems and shall have a printed record of each electronic vote. These are the 5 things. The Voter Bill of Rights. This is the argument that we should be making as libertarians. This is the argument we should be making as Americans in response to this BS gerrymandering. So go check out Lars. Lars Mapstead on X. He's on Facebook. He's all over the place. He was working with he's got an amazing voting rights group that he's working with and getting going to spread this message. Go support him. So that's my answer to that. And that's the question and answer round for this live stream. I know I'm on a high energy right now. I'm about to bring it down a little bit, you guys, because it's a solemn week for me. And it is because there are 2 people who I've known throughout my life that are no longer with us this week. And I'm going to start with the first, and that is a young man named Keaton Schmidt. I don't have his date of birth here because I could not find it, but Keaton is the younger brother of a friend of mine that I've known since elementary school. And just sadly, this week, he was on his motorcycle traveling on the Highway 78 out in Loganville and was struck by a car and killed. Keaton was a very bright young man who loved everybody. He was a very positive person. And, he was very, very active in the skate community in the area, active at skate parks. He was such a great guy and such a pure soul. And it just really hurts to see a guy that young. He's several years younger than me. He'll never hit his 40th birthday, unfortunately. And my heart and my prayers and my condolences go out to his family, particularly to his sister, who I've known since like the 2nd or 3rd grade. lady, my heart's with you and with your family right now, because no one should have to lose a brother, a son, a friend, a loved one, because someone wasn't paying attention to the fact that there was a motorcyclist on the road. And so, if I could urge everyone from here on out, please always look twice. Save a life, drive a little more cautiously, because you never know when there might be a motorcyclist on the road, and your looking out twice could literally save their life. And so, in remembrance of Keaton, I'm going to ask each and every one of you to be a little more cautious on the road as you head out the next time you're driving. And when you see a motorcyclist, make sure you give them the proper space they need to ride safely and for you to drive safely, and so that you both are free from injury or possible death. So just keep a lookout for those who are on bikes. They have families, they have loved ones, they have friends, and they just want to get where they're going safely. And to do that, we in our cars sometimes need to do a better job of looking out for those folks. So, and of course, if you are a rider, ride safe, ride secure, always be wearing your gear, and always be knowing your situational awareness, and do your best to try to protect yourself. But Keaton, you'll be missed. You were a great young man, and you always rode safe. You were always a good guy. So rest in peace. And I believe in an afterlife, so I think your friends, family, and loved ones will get to see you again at that point. Now, it's going to get hard this next part, you guys, because I can already feel the emotion coming, and there's a reason why. And I'm going to go ahead and put his name up here and start talking about him. And that's my buddy Keith. My buddy Keith Folger, who I've not seen in a long time. He had I think it was a 7-year-long battle with cancer that just ended. By the way, cancer sucks. It's awful. It's the worst thing. I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. There are people who said awful things about me, who were pretty terrible to me, and I would not wish cancer upon them. My mom's a cancer survivor. I know many people who have had to fight cancer who have won that battle, and I know people who have lost it. And unfortunately, Keith lost that battle this past week. And I know Keith as a buddy from high school. That's how I know Keith. I first met him when I was in the band at Brookwood High School. I was in the drum line. I was in the pit. He was in the bass drum section. His girlfriend at the time was one of my buddies named Adrian, who's also passed away. She passed away quite a while back when I was like 20 or 21, decades ago at this point, in an auto accident. But that was his girlfriend. She was in the cymbal line, and they were like my friends on the drum line. Like they were like my band buddies. And they really, both of them in their own way, really informed who I became as a person. First off, they were one of the first people I came out to, and they were totally fine with it. They were very accepting, very loving, in fact. And when you're a teenager in like 2000 and you're coming out in red ass Georgia, it's nice to have people who are there for you. And Keith was one of those people. He also got me introduced to music, namely punk rock music. I'm actually going to go see the band Spike and the Gimme Gimmes, known as Me First and the Gimme Gimmes, formerly. I'm seeing them this Friday. He drove me to my first Me First and the Gimme Gimme show. He drove me to my first No Effects show. My first show ever at the Masquerade was with my buddy Keith. And so he really informed a lot of like my musical tastes, and I had a lot of good nights, out at concerts with him and with other friends in that friend group. But he was always the guy who was driving me from place to place. And his old kind of, I can't remember what kind of car it was. It was a gold car. It was an older car. And I remember fondly one day we were cleaning out his car, and there was this like stain on the door. He's like, "What the heck is this?" And then he realized it's because every day when he would get out of the car, he would hit the latch and he would use his foot to push the door open. And it was like 2 years of his foot pushing the same spot had created like a stain on the side of the door. It's crazy. But he took me to my first punk rock shows. He was also very big in the live action role playing community, LARPing. He was very active with an organization called Solar. And he took me to my first LARPs. Like, I did those in high school. I was a drama, I love drama. And LARPing is kind of like 24-hour improv. You're like a character the entire time. And so I really loved doing that. And he continued doing that up until he got sick and wasn't able to do it. And he was a really good guy. And he was one of the first people that let me be who I was without judgment. That's a powerful thing. It's a really powerful thing to have in a friend. And this is one of my big regrets, you guys. And I'm sorry if I'm getting emotional. Death is an emotional thing. But I had run for office these last few years and been very busy. And I saw that he was sick, and I had messaged him a little bit, from here and there, saying, let's reconnect, let's hang out. And he said, yeah, let's do that sometime. And that's where it ended. And that's where we're at. So my advice this week, as I'm turning 40, is there's only so much time in your life. And we're all finite. And if you haven't connected with somebody and you're thinking, I need to reconnect with that person, do it, please. Because you never know. You never know. And so I'm going to end the stream now because it is getting emotional here. But thanks to everybody who watched tonight. And rest in peace, Keith. And rest in peace, Keaton. And hold your loved ones close. With that, I'm going to say goodnight, everybody, before I get too emotional here. And thank you. Thank you for the happy birthdays. I really do appreciate it. And I'm not trying to be sad on my birthday live stream. It's just I did want to commemorate my friend. And that makes me actually really happy knowing that I got to tell that story to people. So you guys have a good night. Thank you so much for the birthday wishes. It's been 40 years of my life, and I'm looking forward to the next 40, God willing. And I'm going to do everything I can to be on this earth as long as possible. And so I'm hoping this is just the first 40, and I have the second 40. And who knows, with medical advancements, maybe I have a third 40. We'll see how this goes. But for tonight, I'm going to wish all of you the same thing I wish to everybody. Peace, love, and liberty. Have a good night.